Hello. So, as you can tell by the menagerie that I have back here, um, this is kind of going to be a Pokemon video. It's going to be one of the Pokemon videos that goes along with the different Pokemon that I've either bred or am breeding, to base off of specific characters from either movies or comics or anime or books or TV shows or so. This one is actually going to be where I talk a little bit about like how I decide to breed each one, or which ones I decide for what Pokemon, or what Pokemon represents each character. And I'm actually going to do this with the Fruits Basket Pokemon. I've already kind of started breeding them at the moment. I'm recording this at the end of May, and because I kind of backlog my videos because I have a weird work schedule, and sometimes it's hard to get a video out every day if I don't have some already in the pipeline already. So this one is going to be about me explaining how I decided to breed. This Pokemon is going to be this specific character from Fruits Basket with this nature and this ability. Sometimes the abilities are a little more just it depends on what ability the Pokemon had to begin with, the abilities that the Pokemon has available, and whether or not those abilities kind of apply to the character. If the abilities don't necessarily apply to the character 100%, then I'm like, well, I just go with whichever one is technically the more useful one in battle for the way that I battle. Back here, representing some of the Zodiac animals, we have the, let's see here, can I do them in order? Probably not. Okay, so for kind of order, we have the rat is going to be, which kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into what Pokemon kind of might I can talk. What Pokemon will end up representing what character, but there's a couple back here that are like, no, they're kind of there to throw you off at the beginning of the video. So we have Warpicue over here, which is the representation for the rat, which is of course Yuki. We have the ox, or Tauros. It's represented by this, because I don't actually have a stuffed Tauros, because I don't know if they even have stuffed Tauros that aren't like huge. Tauros is also one of my, not my zodiac sign in regards to the Chinese zodiac, but the ox, or the cow, is my zodiac sign in regards to month, because tail end of April. So we got that. Let's see, then we have the tiger, which is of course representing Kisa, which is of course we have, well, the ox is of course Hatuharu. The tiger is Kisa. There's no tiger Pokemon that's not Raikou, but I'm like, okay, I'll figure out something for that. We have we have our little bunny over here that represents Momiji, which is of course, why I have a hard time remembering that one. Scorbunny. Scorbunny is that one. We have a Beanie Baby Dragon over here representing Hatari, because he is, of course, the dragon in the Chinese zodiac for Fruits Basket. I don't have any snake stuffed animals. I do have like stuffed snakes in my room, but this was already full enough, so snake is for IMA. We have, of course, a horse. A horse, of course, representing she's Isuzu, or Reen, as she's also called. We have a Wolu, representing Hiro, who is of course the representation of the sheep. We have, let's see here, I'm missing a monkey. Luckily, I have two. I am actually, my zodiac sign for the Chinese zodiac is actually the monkey. 1992 puts me in the year of the monkey. It's also my sister's zodiac sign for that, which means that my sister would have to be 12 years older or 12 years younger than me. My sister is 12 years older than me. We make the joke, and my dad's heard this, that he breeds once every 12 years because he only has two kids and they're both 12 years apart. And they have separate moms. So we have these to represent the monkey. That's going to go over there. Jimshire, are you going to stand up? Stand. Okay, Ritsu's drunk. No. No, Ritsu is not drunk. There we go. You lean on the cow. You lean on the ox. There we go. Let's see. I don't have any dogs over here. Torchic is kind of the representation for Korono, for the rooster. Shigure is, of course, the dog. I don't have any dogs over here. We have a swine up on top of the tiger. We have a swine up representing Kagura, who is, of course, the representation of the boar or the pig. We have, even though Kyo is technically is cursed, but he's technically not a member of the zodiac. We have a Purloin over here representing the cat in the zodiac, and then of course we have Akito, who is the god of the zodiac, who is not represented here. Because technically the god Pokemon in Pokemon is Arceus, and I don't have a stuffed Arceus. I wanted one when they were doing the 20th anniversary for Pokemon, but no, I didn't get one because reasons. Okay, so start at the top of the list. As we're gonna start with the rat, because of course in the Chinese zodiac, the rat is the start of the new year. Because of course. One of the things you learn as you watch Fruits Basket, of course, and for those of you who have no idea what Fruits Basket is, go watch it. It's very good. It'll tug at your heartstrings. It's slice of life mixed with kind of magic stuff, because the premise of the show is that there's this girl whose name is Toru, who ends up living with this group of this family, the Somas, who, whenever they are hugged by someone of the opposite gender, they turn into an animal. They turn into a zodiac animal, and there's 13 of them that are cursed, and they each represent a different year in the Chinese zodiac. So yeah, that's fun. And the course of the show is several of them trying to figure out a way to break the curse. And Toru kind of wants to help break the curse. She's this very sweet, but also rather naive to a degree girl. But she's also very, she's just adorable. Toru is adorable. And so we're going to start with the rat. So the rat is, of course, Yuki. I was trying to figure out what Pokemon to use for that, and I'm like, well, I could do the basic thing and just go with Raticate. But I'm like, Raticate is not my favorite Pokemon. I'm breeding something else to be Eradicate. I'm breeding Eradicate to be something else that's more Disney related. No, it's not Mickey. It's not Mickey. No, I got something else to be Mickey. Cuter. But I'm like, well, what would work for Yuki for that? And I'm like, well, I'm looking through all the other rat type Pokemon or even the mouse type ones, and I'm like, well, why don't I go with Morpeko? We do see Yuki has a bit of a temper at times, not a huge temper, but it does crop up occasionally, mostly when someone insults or threatens someone that's very important to Yuki. So I went with Morpeko is going to be what Yuki gets for his Pokemon counterpart. And Morpeko's only ability is Hunger Switch, which of course allows it to go from the cute, adorable thing to the thing that will rip your head off and then goes right back. Thing that will rip your head out or pull your heart out through your throat. Unless it gets food. And I actually have decided to go with Lonely for Yuki's nature once I get to that. Let's see, moving on down the list, then we have, of course, the ox, which is, of course, Hatsuharu. The ox or the cow, depending on which one you want to go with, or the bull, I guess. And by technicality, the only cow Pokemon is Miltank, and I don't like Miltank anyway, and they're only female. So Hatsuharu is going to be getting Tauros. And Hatsuharu does have a rather intimidating presence about him, particularly when he goes into Dark Haru, which, if you haven't seen the series, just go watch it. That'll explain itself rather quickly once you meet Hatsuharu. If you know what Fruits Basket is, then yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to go with, so he's going to have Intimidate for the ability, and I'm just going to go with a lax nature. Also, if I get one that has like Anger Point and has really good stats, I might go with the Anger Point instead for Tauros, since they both kind of apply for Hatsuharu. Moving on the list, we have Kisa, who is a tiger. Her nature is going to be quiet, but I really don't know what Pokemon to use to breed for her, because there's not really any tiger-based Pokemon that are not, as I said earlier, Raikou. And as much as I like Raikou, I kind of wanted to avoid using legendaries for these because you can't breed a legendary. Scratch that. You can technically breed a Fione, but none of the rest of the legendaries you can breed. So I'm like, well, I can't really do that, and I don't have enough Raikou to be able to pick one to be able to name that, even if I go through and try to find one via like Pokemon Home or something like that, which I might do later on for something else, but I'm like, well, I can't really do anything with that, so I'm like, trying to think if there's a different type of cat Pokemon that I could use for that. So I'm not so much a Purloin, since she's not really that type of a very prissy type of a girl. Kisa is very mellow, very quiet. She gets tortured by Akito throughout the entire series, but then again, so do Isuzu. So does Isuzu, unfortunately. Yeah, which is just not fun for any of the characters. Akito is, yeah, Akito is wow. Oh god. Yeah, and we're getting to the end of the series, so we're kind of starting to get to see a bit more into like what's going on in Akito's head. But I'm trying to figure out what to do for Kisa. So I haven't made that decision yet. It might be a different type of cat, one of the other cat type Pokemon, or I mean, like, I guess last ditch effort, I can always use a female Pyro for that, but I'm not sure yet on that. And then we move on the list. We have Momoji, who's of course the rabbit. And I'm not going to be doing a Scorbunny for Momoji. I'm actually going to be doing a Lopbunny, because, well, Momoji is blonde throughout the course of the series. And it's also, he's just adorable, and he reminded me more of a Lopbunny than of a Venerian a Lopbunny than he did of a Scorbunny and Riaboot and Cinderace. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna go with Lopunny for that. It's gonna have a jolly nature, and it's gonna have cute charm because Momoji is so cute and so able to charm everyone. And then by the time we get to the current point in the series, which is nearing the end of the 3rd season, where we're gonna get the whole, the final climax of the series. Where everything comes to a head, of course. Momoji has, of course, grown up now, and now he's, fully grown and very handsome and everything. And he went from being this adorable, cute little kid to, okay, yeah, no, he's cute. He got cute and tall. And then, of course, moving on down the list, we had the next one on the list is, of course, the dragon. Which is, of course, Hattori. My notes are not staying where they're supposed to. There we go. We have Hattori, who's at the moment represented by a Beanie Baby green dragon. Hattori is actually going to be, because Hattori is, of course, representative of the dragon, and currently in the anime, whenever he turns into his dragon form, it's actually more of a seahorse, which is a reference to, there's a type of seahorse kind of offshoot breed or so that is called a sea dragon or a leafy sea dragon, which is what the Pokemon Dragalge is based off of, which is, of course, a poison dragon type Pokemon. So Hattori is going to be a poison dragon type, is going to be the Dragalge. It's going to have a serious nature because Hattori does tend to be very serious throughout the entire series. That is not denied by anyone. He has moments where he's a little more on the funny side, or he's a little more lets into his emotions and such, but he does tend to be quite a bit on the serious side. And given his unfortunate events in his love life, is kind of understandable. He's going to have Poison Point at the moment, or it's going to end up being either Poison Touch or Poison Point, whichever one. Not really too much else there for Hattori. Moving on, we have the snake, which as I said, I have stuffed snakes, but I just didn't. There's enough over here at the moment. I didn't eat a snake. No offense, Ayame. Ayame is, of course, the representation of the snake in the Chinese zodiac. Throughout the course of the series, Ayame is very flamboyant. And yeah, and at one point when I do my voice actor series, I'm going to mention that, but I'm going to mention this here, where I talk about like different voice actors that have done different roles that they've done that I'm familiar with for like anime voice actors. Ayame is voiced by Chris Sabat, and when I'm first seeing this, and when I first saw IMI pop up in the series, and the way he's acting, I'm like, wait a second, that's Chris Sabat. That's the guy that's Zoro and All Might and Yami from Black Clover and Vegeta and Piccolo and like all this other like super manly, buff, over the top, strong, and then it's just like, hi. Like, oh my god. It just made it funnier, 100% funnier in my opinion. Um, um, well, we have IMA, and there's a couple of different like snake type Pokemon. So I'm like, well, for IMA, it's either I can do a Arbok, and I'm like, not really interested in using an Arbok for that. Could use a Seviper. Sevipers are pretty good in regards to, their good abilities and good. They can get fairly strong. Admittedly, I'm not bringing these specifically to do battle with. I'm just bringing them because I have money in the game to burn, and the DS and Switch games to burn, and I'm like, well, I might as well. But then there's also the superior angle that I could go with, and superior kind of looks like it's wearing like fancy clothing, but I'm like, I'm gonna go with Seviper. So IMA is going to be a Seviper. Is going to be have a naughty nature, very much IMA, and is going to hopefully have Infiltrator once I get it all bred. IMA is, of course, a fashion designer throughout the series. He's one of the older members of the Zodiac, and he's actually the older brother of Yuki, who is the rat. So the snake and the rat, in this case, are brothers. You see their relationship go through a bit of an evolution throughout the course of the series, which is good. Next up, we have the horse, who is, of course, Isuzu, or Reen. Reen is just her nickname because part of the kanji for her name, like the last part of it, also is pronounced as Reen. So we have Isuzu, who is the horse. There's a couple of different horses I could go with, but in the series, Isuzu is kind of a very beautiful looking black horse whenever she gets turned into her animal form. It's not always 100% they turn into their animal forms when they get hugged. Well, when they get hugged by someone of an opposite gender who's not a cursed member of the family. So like Yuki could hug Isuzu and it would be fine because they're both cursed members of the Zodiac, or something along those lines. Any of the male cursed members can hug any of the female cursed members, and it's not a problem. But if Toru, who is a female, hugged one of the male Zodiac members, then they would turn into their Zodiac forms. Hugged or kind of touches or some kind of degree that's beyond just like, shaking their hand or patting them on the shoulder or holding their hand or something like that, that's fine. But if she like hugged them or tried to like catch them or something like that, then they would turn into their animal forms. But also they turn into their animal forms if they get very, very weak. So if they're very, very sick or very, very weak, they tend to get turned into their animal forms to a degree. Because it's just kind of like they look human, but then they also have like the default form of turning into this animal. And I'll go over Kyo in a little bit when I get to Kyo. But so Isuzu, I was trying to figure out, well, what horse works for Isuzu? I'm like, well, I like Ponyta's, both the Rapidash, both the regular and the Galarian variant. But I'm like, no, not so much for Rain, a little too flashy. And I'm like, well, there is Mudsdale and Mudbray. And I'm like, well, again, they're a little too bulky in regards to comparison to Isuzu. So I'm like, we shall go with Zebstrika because I like Zebstrika. So Zebstrika, and she's going to have an adamant nature, and I'm going to lean towards trying to get either lightning rod for her ability, but it may end up being motor drive depending on what happens with the breeding purposes. Isuzu goes through a lot in the series. She's one of the ones that's very much trying to break the curse, and she's actually in love with Hatsuharu. The two of them are in love with each other. And Toru actually ends up meeting every single one of the cursed Zodiac members by the actually it's by the I think the end of the second season. I think that she's actually officially met every single one of them. They had an original version of Fruits Basket that they did in like in the 2000s before, like I don't remember if it was like 2001 or 2010. I think it was 2010. I don't think it was 20 years ago, but I think it was 2009 or 10 that they had an original version that they kind of deviated a bit from the manga. and this version that they're currently doing is much more true to the manga. I think they have a few tiny little bits added in, but it's mostly pretty much the manga, from what I understand. Um, and they brought back all the voice actors beyond the ones that were like kids when they did the roles for like Kisa or Hiro. Um, Speaking of Hiro, we have our sheep, which is going to be a dub wool. Hiro will be a dub wool. I had also debated. I was like, well, I could do an amphoros, but I'll just go with the dub wool instead. So sheep is going to have a hasty nature, and I'm hopefully going to get to breed it with steadfast, but it may end up with I think woolly is the other one that it has. But I'll see if I can get to breed it with steadfast. Next up, we have, well, first off, Hiro is in love with Kisa, and you kind of watch that throughout the course of the series. He's very, very protective of her throughout the entire series, and by the end of the series, they are allowed to be happy together and everything. But Hiro also has a younger sister. A baby sister that gets born in the second season, or it's either at the tail end of the second season or into the third season that she gets born. And one of the things with the family is that even if they're with this cursed family, with the cursed members of the Zodiac in this, this huge family that have like this huge compound that they live on in the middle of the city, even if they have, even like Hiro's own mother can't hug him without him turning into a sheep. Yeah, that's kind of messed up. And Momoji kind of went through this with his mom because his mom is actually from outside of the family. And his mom didn't know about the curse when her and her husband got married. And when her and Momoji's father got married, and Momoji, and then when Momoji is born, he's, the one that gets the curse of the rabbit, because it's like it's the cyclical cycle, of course, which is redundant, that whenever one of the Zodiac members dies that holds one of the spirits, then one of the next babies that will be born in the Soma family within a certain, certain bloodline of the family, or within certain branches of the family, will get the curse. So the rabbit had died, or the rabbit or the bunny or whatever you want to call it had died, and Momoji was the next one born. Therefore, he was the one that was cursed with the rabbit, and that kind of broke his mom, which is one of the character arcs that Momoji has to go through. And he has a very good line in it, in the episode where him and Toru always get along very well, and where Toru finds out. And he just has this great line, and I think I have it here. Where did I put it? Okay. If I keep trying, then someday I'll be strong enough that those memories can't defeat me. I want to believe that there's no such thing as a memory that's okay to forget. And yeah, there's a lot that Momoji has to go through with that, because Hattori, the dragon, has the ability to manipulate people's memories. And because of what Momoji's mother was going through, he actually had to manipulate her memories and make her forget that Momoji was her own child. Which, yeah, no, that's messed up. Very messed up. Very, very messed up and very, very sad. And Momoji has a little sister that he knows she's his little sister, and his father knows that she's his little sister, but she doesn't know that she's his little sister. And his mother doesn't even remember that Momoji is her own child. So yeah, there's a lot there. But yeah, Hiro, the sheep, has a little baby sister, and he couldn't hold her. He couldn't hold her when she was first born at the hospital. He can't hug his own mother to a degree without worrying about turning into a sheep. He couldn't hug his own sister without him turning into a sheep. And throughout the course of the third series, we see as the different curses get broken, like we find out certain ones one of them has already been broken, but we find out that certain ones have been, that's as different ones break. Like we see Momoji's break, and now he can try to go and actually have a relationship with his mother and his sister without worrying about turning into a rabbit every time they hug him. And Hiro's, we just saw Hiro's one break, Hiro's curse break, and the first thing that he does is he holds his sister. He holds his baby sister, and his mom comes in And seeing that her son has not turned into a sheep just makes her so happy. And then, of course, she goes over and hugs him, and it's like the two of them can, he can finally hug his mom, which is one of those very emotional moments in the series, where he can hug his sister, he can hug his mother, and not worried about being turned into a freaking sheep. Moving on. I get emotionally invested in anime series. I got emotionally invested in Sailor Moon. I got slightly emotionally invested in Pokemon, I guess. I'm emotionally invested in, like, to a degree, Black Clover, definitely One Piece at this point in time. Emotionally invested in My Hero. Yeah, there's a lot of anime that I'm emotionally invested in. Some of them it's because I've been watching them for like 20 some years, in the case of like Pokemon and Digimon and stuff like that. Other ones, it's the character is just like, okay, we're going to reach in here and we're going to start tugging on your heartstrings so much that you're not going to have a choice but to care about us. That's kind of what Fruits Basket did. Not necessarily so much Attack on Titan, because I'm like, I don't really want to get emotionally invested in any character because I don't know how many of them are actually going to make it to the end. But I still kind of did. I didn't like it when Sasha died, but moving back to Fruits Basket, we have Ritsu, who is the monkey, which of course is the representation for my zodiac birth year for that. Ritsu is actually male, but dresses as a female and tends to act as a female, which kind of throws Toru off when she first meets her. She ends up, when she first meets Ritsu, she hugs Ritsu thinking that Ritsu is a girl, after they've kind of become a little bit of friends, and then Ritsu turns into a monkey. And then Toru's like, I'm so sorry, I thought you were a girl. And then we get the whole explanation of, no, Ritsu is actually a boy, but he tends to dress like a girl just because he feels more comfortable in female clothing, which is fine. We get that with that. Ritsu is extremely shy, and Ritsu is actually going to be a ambipom, and is going to have a very timid nature, and is hopefully going to have technician once I get that bred. Ritsu is adorable. I love Ritsu. He is so cute, and so polite, and like he will apologize for everything, even if it's not his fault. Which, we also see his mother at one point in the series. Actually, I think we meet his mother before him, and she's kind of the same way. She will apologize for everything, even though it's not her fault. And Ritsu is the same way. Yeah, we find out that a bunch of the different Somas, their last name of the family is Soma, a bunch of them are in love with someone that's outside of the family, or someone that's outside of the curse in and of itself. And we kind of see throughout the course of the series, as they interact with other people, some of them are kind of meet them through a catalyst of knowing Toru, some of them meet outside of that. It kind of shifts around a little bit. But Ritsu is one of the people that ends up being in love with someone who's outside of the family. Ritsu can't tell the girl that she's, I'm cursed and we can't actually hug and do anything or whatever, but yeah, I like Ritsu. I kind of know that via stuff that I've looked up online, I know that most of the Zodiac members end up being pretty happy by the end of the season, or by the end of the series. They end up being pretty happy, which is good. Next up, we have Korono, who is the rooster, and I found this so funny. Korono is voiced by Brooke from One Piece, which just made me so happy. I just like when he's introduced, I'm like, wait a second, he sounds familiar. I looked up, oh, that's why he sounds familiar. Another one of the ones where when I do like the videos of like, all of this voice actor has done this, and this, and it's just like, okay, one of these doesn't match, type thing. Like when I do the Chris Sabat one, and there's a few characters here that are going to throw you off for what they act, how they act, what they look at. It's like one of these things is not like the others. Korono, who is of course a representation of the rooster, is going to have a calm nature. And I was debating about the Torchic is here to throw you off a little bit. I was debating about doing a Blaziken for it, but I'm like, I like Blaziken, but I already have two, and they're both really good. And I'm like, well, so I went with something else. I went with a Dodrio. And Dodrio, of course, is kind of the representation in the original series of kind of like roosters that crow at dawn type of a thing. So I'm like, we'll go with Dodrio. And is going to have, well, at the moment, the ability is just planning on being runaway. Korono does kind of tend to run away from some of his problems, or unfortunately, in some cases, run to them. And if you're watching this and you have not seen Fruits Basket, go watch Fruits Basket, then this video will make so much more sense. Next up, we have Shigure, who is one of the ones that we're introduced to in the first episode. Shigure is the one that can turn into the dog. Yeah, Shigure is kind of well, at the beginning of the series, he's very nice. He's very nice to Toro. He's actually one of the ones that allows her to live in his house. Shigure and Yuki and another one, Kyo, who we'll get to in a moment, who is the cat, is actually, they actually all live on their own, off, like on a different, outside of the Soma estate. And Toro actually ends up living with them because she doesn't have a place to live, and they invite her to live with them, and then she finds out about their secret, and then she, promises, I'm not going to tell anyone, I promise, and she keeps that promise. She doesn't tell anyone. Throughout the entire series, she does not tell anyone about that, about the fact that they turn into animals. And she ends up meeting each of the different Zodiac members. But for Shigure, I was like, well, he's a dog. He's very impish and manipulative. Throughout by this point in the series, in season 3, we kind of find out that he is extremely manipulative, and that he kind of a little bit doesn't care about who suffers as long as he gets what he wants. But I know that kind of changes a little bit, that it's kind of more just like him trying to find a way to break the curse, but he could go about it a better way. That involves less people getting emotionally scarred or physically scarred. Shigure is going to have an impish nature, and he's going to be a Houndoom. I thought about a Mighty Anna, but I'm like, I got like 3 of these things already because I got like 2 regular and 1 shiny, and I'm like, we'll go with a Houndoom. So we're going to have Houndoom for that. He's going to have Flash Fire. Don't really know too much, or don't really have too much else to say about that at the moment. We'll see what happens. And then we have Kagura, who is the boar, who is the pig. And I had debated about doing a Embor, and I'm like, well, not so much. I mean, Kagura is pretty strong and rather violent to a degree throughout the course of the series, and I'm like, not so much that. And then I'm like, well, I don't really care for, the Spoink and, that line. I don't really care for the Spoink line or Grump Pig, and I'm like, well, no, don't really want that. So I decided to go with a Swine Up, or a Pylo Swine, Emma Swine, for that line instead for Kagura. It's going to be, the boar, the pig, and she's going to have a bold nature, and it's kind of going to be oblivious, which is just like one of the more, I think also Snowcloak or whatever it is, also may end up being the ability instead. We'll see how the breeding goes. Kind of depends more on the IVs. But we'll see what happens with Kagura. At the moment, we'll just see where that leads. I like Kagura throughout the series. She's very good to go after what she wants. She's one of the female members, so she can hug the male members and male members of the Zodiac and not worrying about them turning into their animal forms, which leads into Kyo. Now, in the Chinese Zodiac, the story behind it, as far as I'm aware, was that God was going to have a dinner, and he was going to have a race of the animals, and whatever order they arrived in was going to be the order that the years were named after. And, the different animals, different friends and stuff like that, and stuff like I think it was like the dog and the pig were friends, and like some of the other ones were friends, but like the rat and the cat were friends. And the rat knew that if the cat raced, that the rat would lose. So he lied to the cat and said, oh no, I will wake you up when it's time to go, because the cat was like, well, I'm going to sleep a lot, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get up and everything to get to this, to get to the race and get to the dinner. So you can wake me up, and then we can go together. But the rat wanted to be, this is the story that we get in the series as well, that the rat wanted to be the first one, and it didn't wake up the cat. So by the time the cat woke up, the race had been finished, and all, the 12-year cycle had been, determined in the order that I just did, with the rat being the first and the pig being at the end because it was the last one to show up. And then the cat is kind of excluded. And in the series, we find out that even though the cat is technically not a proper member of the Zodiac, it is still a cursed member of the Zodiac. And Kyo, who is one of the three main, is one of the kind of the the kind of love interest that we have, because people are like, well, we want Toto to end up with either Yuki or with Kyo, one of the two. And most people are like, we'll be okay with either one, type of a thing. I already know who she ends up with in the manga. I'm assuming that this the anime series is going to go in the same direction in this case. But I won't put that here because that's a major spoiler. But what ends up happening is the cat still ends up getting cursed, and Kyo is looked upon as this wretched, horrid thing outside of the family, that even though it's still technically part of the family, it's still technically required to keep the Zodiac thing going. It is looked upon as a curse. It is looked upon as, if you're like a parent of the cat, you are cursed. If you are the lover of the cat, you are cursed. If you are a child of the cat, you are cursed. And Kyo is the current incarnation of the cat, and he gets rather exiled from the family to a degree, but he's still bound by the curse. And he actually has it where Kyo wears this bracelet that they said is, in the series we're told that it's made out of human bones, and I'm like, I really freaking hope that's not true. But knowing this series and how dark it gets sometimes, for emotionally dark, that wouldn't surprise me if it is. But the bracelet, the beaded bracelet, kind of helps keep Kyo in check. He can still turn into a cat when he gets hugged by like Toru or someone else who's not a member of the Zodiac family. He can still get turned into a cat. And part of the thing about being one of these spirits is that, like, if you're like, Kyo has like cats that are attracted to him, which is funny, and like Yuki has like rats that show up every now and then. Shigure, I don't remember if they ever show that like Shigure has like stray dogs coming up to him or anything like that, but I don't remember if that, by that right, Kisa should never go to the zoo because the tiger will just like follow her in its cage. Or Ritsu should never go to the zoo because the monkeys will just all like stare at him the entire time, and he'll just be like, I'm sorry, what did I do? But I love this series. But what ended up happening is Yuki, or Kyo, also has kind of a beast type form, that if the bracelet is ripped off, the bracelet is removed. And I don't remember if there's something to do with like the full moon or not in this case, but it's like if the bracelet is removed, then he turns into this more beast type form, and is so much stronger and much more demonic and scary looking. And at one point he does get turned into, well, he turns into this, I think, like 2 times throughout the series. Might turn into it again, I think, before the end of the series, but I don't know yet. But Toru is actually kind of the one that helps change him back, or helps get him to calm down, because Kyo has been, just raised his whole life to think that he's nothing but a monster, that he's not worth love, he's not worth being cared about, he's not worth, having anyone be his friend, he's not worth any of that. And that's just something horrid that he has to go through. And we learn a lot more about Kyo and his past and everything. But for Kyo, I was like, well, he's the cat, and there's a lot of different cat Pokemon I can pick from. And I'm like, well, how about I go with a Berserker, which is evolves from the Galarian version of Meowth, which is the Steel type, which then turns into Berserker. And I like that. I kind of think that kind of reflects a little bit more on Kyo's beast form that he turns into. He's going to have a brave nature, and well, depending on stuff, it's either going to end up how the breeding goes. It's either going to end up with either battle armor or tough claw, depending on how things go. Other than that, then we move into God, who is the final member of the cursed zodiac, of the curse. Which God in this case is not like an actual deity. It is the current head of the family, and that is a character named Akito, who in the original anime series is male, and in the current anime series and in the manga is revealed to actually be female. She was raised to be male because her mother is a bitch. And there's a lot that goes into that with Akito. And in regards to voice actors, Akito is voiced by Colleen Clinkenbeard, who is of course the same lady that voices Luffy from One Piece, and Urza from Fairy Tail, and Momo from My Hero Academia. Yeah, that's a hard one to explain to people. It's like, so extremely jolly, extremely funny, and then freaking messed up because Akito kind of likes to torture the female members of the Zodiac, and even to a degree the male members of the Zodiac, because in her mind she was told her entire life that she is a special child. She was born to be loved. She's born to, she's born to have all of these, that the Zodiac members belong to her, that she is free to do with them as she wishes, and that their place is to please her. And like the whole family, just like the whole family besides her mother, basically cater to her every whim. Many of the Zodiac members don't necessarily like it, but because of the curse, they are kind of compelled to obey her until the curse is broken. And she can feel when the curse breaks between her, when the bond breaks between her and one of the other members of the Zodiac. And it keeps kind of making her snap more and more. And that's kind of interesting to watch. She doesn't like it when any of the other female members of the Zodiac try to be in a relationship with any of the male Zodiacs. The one exception to this was she didn't care that Kagura wanted to be in a relationship with Kyo, because Akito is as disgusted by Kyo about the cat as everybody else is. Even more disgusted by him. But we kind of see more of Akito's character arc through this. And, the god Pokemon, as I said, is Arceus, but I'm like, I don't really want to do Arceus for this. As I said, I want to try to avoid using the legendary ones at the moment. So I'm like, well, what could I do for that? Rash would definitely go for a good nature to do for whatever Pokemon I do Akito as, but I cannot figure out what Pokemon to do that for. I don't really know. I mean, like, I don't know. I might just kind of wing it and just see kind of what Pokemon makes sense, but I'm not really so sure. And as I said, I wanted to avoid kind of the legendaries and the mythics in regards to trying to use them for this. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with that. The other ones that I was debating on is like, I was trying to figure out, well, do I want to do something for Toru? To name after Toro and breed and everything. And I'm like, well, I don't really know yet for that, but I would probably definitely put it more as a gentle nature for Toro. Don't really know what Pokemon to do for that. Toro is kind of plain and very normalish type girl, so I'd probably go with a normal type Pokemon. But I don't know what to do for that one yet. I was debating about Eevee, but I'm like, no, I don't really want to do that. Debating between... I might just look and figure out if there's some other type of normal type Pokemon that I kind of want to go for that. We'll see. That I want to use for Toru. And then Toru has two best friends in the series, Arisa Utani, who is kind of this... She's kind of... Her background is that she's kind of like one of the stereotypical, like, punk against establishment, the thug, rough and tumble street gang type girls, but she gets better. And I was going to go with Sassy for whatever I name her after, but I don't know beyond that. And then the other one that she has, her friend Saki Hanajima, or Hana-chan as she's called, has a relaxed. I was gonna do a relaxed nature, and just given what she's how she is in the series, I was gonna do a Hatarin named after her at the moment with anticipation, but I have like. I got like a bunch of Hatarin right now, so I don't really know if I want to do that or not. Um, well, because I have like Gigantamax ones, and then I have regular ones, and I don't know exactly beyond that if I want to breed any more Hatarin at the moment. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't know. That's what we have for our Zodiac Pokemon at the moment for Fruits Basket. I don't really have anything else to add to that for the moment. At whatever point in time I do end up get them all finished, bred, and nicknamed, and select the one that I want to use for each one, and then maybe figure out. I mean, like once this video goes up, if you think of something that I can use for Kisa, or if you think of something for either Akito, Toru, or Arisa, or Saki, and you're familiar with Fruits Basket, then please comment and tell me, because I don't know. um, we'll see how that goes. It might just be a little while before I get the other one of this set up, because it just depends, or the other one for this made, once I figure out the get the rest of these stuff bred. Because the ones that I've already determined, I was like, I'll get those bred first, and then I'll move on and figure out if there's anything else, what other ones I want to use for that. Because like tigers are hard for Pokemon because there's not that many. There's one, and it's a legendary. And as much as I like Raikou, doesn't really work for what I want to do. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. So that's what I got for this video. I thank you very much for watching. Go watch Fruits Basket. Just go watch that. It's on Funimation and probably some other streaming sites. Go watch that. It's good. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye! I think it's true what they say. Crying, unexpectedly, does make you feel better, without shame, like a child. When you get older, you forget about that. It's not easy to have a good cry anymore.